In today's double season premiere of Star Trek Lower Decks, all of the Lower Deckers get the opportunity to be promoted to Lieutenant Junior grade by the end of the 2 episodes, and on top of this, the crew of the USS Cerritos gets an incredible opportunity to decommission a piece of Starfleet history in the form of the USS Voyager, one of the most famous starships to ever exist in the Star Trek canon. That means we're going to get an episode riddled with crazy references that truly are great at exploring the goofy and outrageous side of Voyager that historically gets memed and criticized. I love Voyager so much. It's probably the best Trek in my opinion to rewatch. It truly gives you the Full House vibes. Cast is more like a family than any other Star Trek cast in my opinion, and it also has some of the most bold and hilarious and entertaining moments in all of Star Trek. People love Voyager, and if you do love Voyager, then that means you're going to love today's Lower Decks premiere. Star Trek Day is also tomorrow, and they have announced recently that they are giving us some short treks that just look amazing from the teasers. They're going to be animated in the old TAS style, which is just really cool to me. Also appreciate the fact that they've already come out and said that these shorts are non-canon, which in my opinion slightly confirms the fact that the other short treks that they made earlier in the Kurtzman era of Trek, that those are also non-canon, which is good to me because those things are littered with canon mistakes and they really don't deserve to be canon. Enough blabbering. With all that being said, let's get right into it. Everybody, welcome back to another one of my Star Trek reviews. One of my favorite things in the world is when new Star Trek content comes out and I get to review it, so thank you so much for being here, whether you're new or not. I really appreciate you. Last time you guys saw me, I was reviewing the season finale of Strange New Worlds. We got a new Scotty actor. We finally got to see the Gorn in live-action format, and I've been waiting for more Star Trek content to come out. Lower Decks is here, and they just gave us 2 really strong, entertaining episodes. I've said this time and time and again, you really can't go wrong with Lower Decks. This show has never done anything egregious to the point where it bothered me. It's a rather harmless, great addition to the Star Trek universe. It just takes facets that have already been explored and re-explores them through the use of references, Easter eggs. Sometimes you feel like it relies on them a little bit too much and it feels a little bit spammy. A lot of the old heads will criticize Lower Decks for its over-reliance on old Star Trek content without having its own identity. But that is its identity. It is the Star Trek parody show, doesn't take itself seriously, doesn't need to improve on the canon. It's just about some insignificant characters who exist in the Star Trek universe and, like us, just want to appreciate what came before them. Episode 1, titled Tuvix, obviously called Tuvix because everybody on the ship was falling victim to the Tuvix ailment, where a space orchid from the Delta Quadrant gets put into the transporter beam with 2 individuals, and they combine together making 1 individual. One of the biggest debates in Star Trek history as to whether Captain Janeway actually murdered Tuvix by making the decision to separate him and to revive Neelix and Commander Tuvok. And in the episode, if you guys remember, her argument at the time was that if she were to not do the procedure, that she would have been murdering Tuvok and Neelix. So she kind of just had to make the decision for everybody, being the commanding officer, and Tuvix did beg for his life in the episode before they did the procedure. So it is one of the most crazy ethical dilemmas ever presented in Trek, and it is the only time Starfleet captain of a flagship show might have committed murder. Right off the bat, I really appreciate Commander Ransom just coming out and saying 2 things. For one, Voyager was just absolutely crazy and the events that happened on there were wild. And then secondly, that Captain Janeway does not mess around and she's more than willing to split one guy into 2 guys, therefore murdering him. Like, she does not mess around. There were plenty of episodes where she just did not mess around, which made Captain Janeway very cool. One of the most ridiculous episodes of all time, the one that's bothered me the most, in my opinion, is the Threshold episode. The fact that Tom Paris, this knucklehead who's just kind of a little bit quirky and good at flying, collaboration with B'Elanna Torres, who, while she is a talented engineer, there's no way that these guys should be that talented that these knuckleheads are the first people to break trans-warp capability among humans. And if you did notice in today's episode, they did do a good job of referencing Threshold by having the de-evolved salamander creatures that Paris and Janeway turned into on display being animatronics. The Tuvix episode did a great job of appealing to my personal bias. The fact that the macroviruses showed up on the bridge to start the chain of events that leads it into its typical hectic lower decks fashion. Boimler was just trying to mess up the entire day intentionally so he wouldn't get that promotion. Macroviruses left the bridge and then turned on the holodecks, which created a whole bunch of very chaotic holodeck characters, one of which was Fear, the Fear character from the Thaw episode, and the Thaw is definitely in my top 5 favorite Voyager episodes. It might be one of my favorite Trek episodes of all time. It's so cool getting to see Michael McKean in that episode, and then getting to see Captain Janeway have that 1v1 duel with Fear itself. It's such a cool idea and a concept for an episode. I really enjoyed it. Also got to see Dr. Chaotica. You can't really reference Voyager without having Captain Proton and Dr. Chaotica, and there was even that cool scene of Boimler claiming that he was Captain Proton's son and outsmarting Dr. Chaotica by keeping him stalled. Michael Sullivan from Fairhaven, you know, there was at least 3 Fairhaven episodes, I believe, and there was the holodeck character, Michael Sullivan, that fell in love with Captain Janeway and was kind of questioning his own holodeck existence. That was really cool to see all of those things referenced, some of my favorite, really important things. And then also, let's not forget about the Neelix cheese. Whenever I go to tell people who don't watch Star Trek about Star Trek, I want to tell them there was an episode where the entire starship, like this top-of-the-line 24th century limousine of a starship, almost got destroyed by a simple cheese that was made by Neelix. That was one of the craziest things to ever happen in a Trek episode, and I still can't believe it to this day. They started off by merging Dr. Tiana and Billups, and I took the time to watch the Tuvix episode earlier today, and if you take those 2 scenes and put them right next to each other, they actually took the time to emulate that 80s scene, you know, right before they're about to cut away to the opening credits. They always kind of try to make it a little bit dramatic, and they tried to emulate that in today's episode of Lower Decks. And then also them putting Voyager away in a museum kind of makes you feel a little bit sad, doesn't it? Like, the great era of Trek that all Star Trek fans enjoyed the most was definitely the 90s. That was when we got the most content. That was when the true archetype, the true storytelling, 50 minutes, the Trek template, that's when it was created, and that's when they made the most of it. And we might not ever see that again. We might not ever see a Trek series like Voyager, like Deep Space Nine, like TNG, and it's a little bit sad to think about. It did give me a sense of melancholy, have to sadly admit. Mr. Tweakle, by the way, said mid-episode that the explanation for why there's so many holograms around, why Mariner's out here making out with Michael Sullivan, is the fact that he took the time to install holo emitters. But if you ask me, I've watched Voyager many times, and it just seems like as you progress throughout the series, the holo technology just gets better with every episode, and the Doctor just gets more and more freedom. So whereas he gets his mobile emitter, which gives him complete freedom, they do take the time to install holo emitters throughout different areas of the ship. I know this for a fact. That episode where they go back to the future and fight 90s Elon Musk, he has holo emitters in his office as well. So there was a lot of holo emitters on Voyager already, in my opinion. In the second episode I watched today, I Have No Bones, Yet I Must Flee. This episode was great, and I gotta tell you guys it was great because I was in the freaking episode. Did you guys not see me? Ensign Gary Gannon? Ensign Gary? Did you guys see that ensign in the second episode that was literally me, like it was your boy? Do you guys see this? This white male face with the uplifted hair, and you're telling me that that was not a Gannon reference? I gotta tell you guys, after sitting here, taking the time to review every single episode of Star Trek Lower Decks since its first season, okay, I've maybe introduced at most an extra 200 people to this show. That is a crazy amount of promotion. Mike McMahon. I didn't know. You know, I really thought none of these people knew I existed, but Mike McMahon, you obviously know I exist because you put me in today's Star Trek episode. I will admit, you got a little bit wrong. You did not give me a mustache, and you also called me Ensign Gary. It's not my name. It's actually Gannon. So if we could get that repaired for when I come back in Season 3, and then it's okay. We can always just go back and fix this footage, put it in post-production, and change Gary to Gannon. But I know what you meant, McMahon. The intention was there, but just a little bit inaccurate, okay? I don't fault you, though. You're my boy. I love that you're looking out for me, and my dream's finally fulfilled. I'm finally in a Star Trek series, y'all. Thank you so much. We up, baby. We are up. All jokes aside, besides me delusionally trying to live my fantasies out by acting like that's me in the Star Trek show, that really does remind me of me. Like, if they ever wanted to put me in Star Trek Lower Decks, you could literally give that guy kind of a puby, crusty mustache, and you would have Gannon. That would be me right there. Just the really generic-looking white male with just the hair up like this. Because you guys always see me. I got my hair poofed up in the front. I got so excited. I was so stoked to see Gary. I felt like I was in today's Star Trek episode. I'll shut up. Ransom and Shax are in the gym, and they're stretching, and they're in the space unitards that Deanna Troi and Dr. Crusher often wore in the TNG, where they would talk about their girl problems and their girl issues. I thought that was comedy gold. Really just enjoyed the Rutherford arc the most. He took up a lot of the second episode, and his rivalry with this character, this just other ensign in the engineering room while he's trying to get a promotion, was really funny. I thought that the cliche part where they're just saying each other's name and getting really dramatic, that made me chuckle every time. That was a really good bit. I really enjoyed as well how Rutherford was just simply able to go and ask Billups for the promotion at the end of the day, because he has accomplished so much and done so many things, and it was really cool to see Tendi stick up for him and just be like, hey, Billups, can he get a promotion for this? It's cool to see the Lower Deckers actually more than deserve the promotion at this point. Really looking forward to not seeing them in that crusty bunk space anymore. I hope they do not get demoted, and that they continue to be lieutenants. Really enjoyed seeing the interrogation room of the Romulan ship and seeing them throw, in reference, a Reman, just kind of throw his body in a trash chute. You guys should know that every time they take the opportunity to reference and show love to the Remans, love it so much because I thoroughly believe they're one of the most slept on races in all of Star Trek. Star Trek Nemesis is so slept on. It's probably the Star Trek movie with the best premise. It's the coolest one. It might be the best Star Trek movie in my opinion. It's slept on, and I really wish the Remans were more well explored in the Star Trek universe. But this ship's going around, it's murking, you know, Alpha Quadrant species, showing off its abilities, and at this point the USS Cerritos has no wind of it, has nothing to do with it. They even say in the season description that the Cerritos is not even important enough to deal with it, probably until later, until the season finale, but the ship does kind of remind me of the time spaceship from the TNG, the one that fake time traveler was in. It looks really advanced like that ship. It's not the same ship for sure, but it does remind me of that one, and I'm not going to try to guess what's inside that ship, because if we're going to be honest with ourselves here, we could all try to guess all day. None of us are going to get it right. It's going to be something we least expect to be inside. All that being said, I'm going to give the double season opener of Lower Decks definitely a 7.5, between a 7 and an 8, because they didn't do anything too outrageous or too crazy bold, besides the fact that we got to see Voyager being decommissioned and the fact that they decided to let the Cerritos crew do it. I actually think that's quite significant. I think that they're honestly like a piece of Star Trek history now. But Lower Decks is so solid. The whole community loves it. We all love the comedy, the jokes, the cast at this point we're all warmed up to, and the references and Easter eggs seem to get better and more tasteful with every coming season. And then on top of this, they do decide to sprinkle in some really cool canonical elements. Like, we'll never forget about them showing the USS Titan for the first time in canon. That is something that Lower Decks will always be goated for. Hope I caught enough references and Easter eggs for you guys. By the way, if I missed any, please leave them down in the comments below. If you're enjoying any of the content on the channel, I'd be very flattered if you were to subscribe. Once we hit 10K, I'm going to film a funny video out in public where I dress up as my favorite Star Trek Xenos. If you have anything you want to share with me about science fiction, about Star Trek, about today's review, please leave it down in the comment section below. Comments are my favorite thing about the platform, and the more you leave, the happier I am. And until next week, when we take a look at episode 3, hope y'all have a good rest of your week. Live long and prosper.